11 Bang Bang Reload Show starts now.
Well, hello, everybody. We're back. It's another 11 Bang Bang Reload Show. And tonight we have a very special guest, and we are streaming to 2 different channels. So if you guys want to go check it out on Snapper's channel and give him a few views, go ahead. We already have 20 people in. And our special guest tonight is Turkey Creek 1823 over here, who we will be referring to tonight as TC. Now, I'm just going to give you guys a little rundown of how I know him. Years ago, I was looking for information on Mountain Man era guns, and his videos popped up. And he has been one of my favorite channels ever since. So, without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and ask you a few questions here, TC. How in the world did you get into this? You've been doing it for a long time, obviously. And just what got you into this Mountain Man era? Obviously, 1823, so we're talking very early fur trade. What got you into all this?
Basically, 2 passions, history and firearms. And
I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah. And the first time I shot a muzzleloader, I was hooked. So that was probably 77, somewhere around there. And so I've been shooting muzzleloaders ever since.
Would you say you're a product of the Jeremiah Johnson generation then?
More a product of Daniel Boone and David Crockett.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Johnson didn't come along until 72, and that's the year I graduated from high school. So.
Nice.
And were you big?
I'm getting an echo. Are you guys getting an echo as well?
It's a little bit, but it's fine. I kind of figure what it is here, but it's really not fixable, so we're just gonna go with it.
Okay. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So I was just gonna ask, did you do rendezvous and all that back during the heyday? Was that kind of your thing, or were you just?
Actually, you could probably count all the rendezvous and shoots that I've been to on 2 hands and have a couple fingers left over.
Oh yeah.
Just not a socializer. I wouldn't call myself antisocial by any means, but I've just never been one for crowds or anything like that. So I like to be out in the woods with my flintlock. That's what seems natural. And I like to camp and do those things, and I like to be with my family. So that's, I've been to a few. I've been to 2 Western National Rendezvous back in the 90s and really enjoyed them, but it's just, I'm just not that type of person. I was actually invited to join the American Mountain Men probably 6 years or so ago. And I take that as one of the highest honors that can be bestowed on somebody who's interested in the mountain man period. And hey, if you ever hear this video, I really appreciate that. But with the American Mountain Men, you have to meet certain qualifications, and most of those things I had done already and could do, but there was just something about being required to do them that
made it not fun anymore.
And obviously, as a lot of people know that watch your channel, I think you pretty well build all the guns you shoot on your channel. I don't think I've seen a gun on your channel you didn't make yourself. So how did that journey get started? What was your first muzzleloader that you built?
Back in the day, back in the early 80s, I was desperately in love with the Green River Rifle Works full stock flint Hawken. I wanted one so bad I could taste it, and I had a young wife and a little daughter, and it just wasn't in the cards. So we finally scraped up the money, and I ordered the parts from Pecatonica River Long Rifle Supply and built my first muzzle loader sitting right back here. It's a 36-inch barrel, 54 caliber flint, full stock Hawken, and I hunt with that rifle every year. I I always think I'm going to hunt deer with one of my other guns. Another gun I built, and my hand just automatically gravitates to that rifle, and that's what I go hunting with. So
and that kind of amazes me because from the conversations I've had with you in history, the Hawken's probably not your favorite rifle. Maybe it is. Maybe that's just the way I understand it from you. But you love this Hawken.
it's a love-hate thing, and if you want to get into it sometime during the show tonight, that's fine. But yeah, the Hawken brothers had to have made Flint Hawkins, and at that time, most guns were full stock, and so I think those things probably were out there. They were more expensive than the J.J. Henrys and the other guns that were being fed into the Western fur trade, and so there weren't a lot of them. But I think they were out there, but they weren't cap lock guns. So
yeah. Well, we're going to get into that in just a second because I know you have a lot to say on that subject. But let me go through here and read who all's here and what they've commented. Stephen M. Mann said the mountain man has entered the room, the other mountain man. George Gooding said, oh boy, another Saturday night school session. Learning is so much fun. Diane Houston says howdy. By Land and Sea says howdy. Oregon Outbacks here said, hello, all you ornery, foul-smelling, dead animals, skinning humans. I'm proud to be in such fine company. John Green said, hi. AR American is here. He said, good evening. Garza Vlogs is here. He said, good evening. AR American's in. He said, hi, Turkey Creek. Appalachian Man Cave is in. He said, Cape Bredo, Nova Scotia, checking in. Louisiana
Nice.
Gray says, I made it. I'm here. Texan 1836 said, good evening, boys. Hardy's in here. Louisiana Gray. And that's about it for now. Hey, guys, if you got any questions, because this is the guy, I pick his brain quite a bit, actually, whenever I got a flintlock question, and he's always got a pretty good answer. If he doesn't, he has an article or a book he can point me to. And I do, actually, when it comes to mountain man stuff, I'm always texting him trying to figure out what's going on here. So if you guys got any questions about this era, throw them out there, and I'm sure he can do a pretty decent job, or at least we'll all act like we can do a decent job. So just kind of piggybacking on what we were just doing there, I kind of have a feeling I know what your favorite gun that you've made is, maybe other than, historical-wise. But what is your favorite gun in history as far as flintlock, mountain man era guns go?
I'm going to start off by claiming that I am a typical American, so I am a rifleman. One of my all-time favorites as far as the mountain men goes is the Northwest Trade Gun.
Yeah.
If we go on later into the period and get up into the mid 1830s, I really like the Flint Lehman. So yeah, I've got some favorite guns out there for sure.
I kind of figured you were going to go Lehman trade rifle on this.
Yeah.
I was just actually reading to you last night in the book I had showing you how that I was just amazed that in 1879, when the government went back to Springfield Armory and just October of 1879, all the captured native arms that came in, you'd see 4 Henrys, 5 Winchesters, several Springfield rifles, and then 160 Lehman trade rifles brought in 1 month. Muzzle loading rifles in 1879.
Yeah, Lehman was pretty prolific from about the mid 30s on. I can't remember when he started his gun business. It seems like he was a gunsmith in Philadelphia, I believe, and maybe it was Derringer or somebody he worked for, but he was pretty accomplished by the time he started his own business in the mid 1830s, and he really started cranking them out. He actually had contracts to produce not only the trade rifles, but Northwest trade guns as well. So he puts out in the field for sure.
Yeah, and would you say he's kind of the last of the great rifle makers of the fur trade era?
Yeah. By then, by the time he got in it, it was almost done. By 1840, fur trade was done. 39 really saw the last good rendezvous, and so where you started running across the Lehman guns would have been in the sutlers' rooms at like Bent's Fort, places like that. They probably always had Lehman rifles in stock. Maybe Fort Union. I'm sure a lot of them went through there, through American Fur guns or companies like that were selling Lehmans.
We have some questions over here. First one is, Gray Wolf said, "Hi, when are you going to have an episode I can ask about black powder cartridge rifles?" Go ahead, because I don't know.
Now's a good time.
You can ask him now because I know that Turkey Creek's got some knowledge there, and I have a little bit, but we can do an episode on it if you guys want. But Hardy asked a question. He said, "Question, if Hollywood is making a fur trade movie, what gun should they buy in bulk as the standard fur trade gun?"
The Northwest gun.
That's what I was about to say.
Those are everywhere.
Yeah. If you look at the trade lists, and I haven't by any means seen near all of them, but if you look at the trade lists, one trade list or one bill of lading would have maybe 3 dozen smoothbore trade guns and a dozen rifles. So, there were just lots and lots of smoothbore trade guns going west.
And I find it interesting that any movie you make from, as long as it's mountaineer way back in the back hills, any movie from 1775 basically to World War I, you can almost fit one in. They were around a long time. Okay. Let's see. We got a couple. Texan said, "Just got my gear squared away for San Jacinto next weekend." Yes, if you guys are down there, go check that out. AR American want to know: have you ever shot a Kodiak double rifle? Any thoughts on it?
I would love to. I would absolutely love to shoot a Kodiak double rifle. I'd love to shoot any big rifle.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Any really big gun is fun to shoot.
This is something, and I might have to give you a little explanation on this. This is Stephen M. Man. That's Stephen M. Mountain Man. He has his own channel. I'm sure you've seen it. He has an idea he's been working on for a long time. You're aware of the What Would Stoner Do AR-15. It's basically people saying if Eugene Stoner building the AR-15 in 1950s, 60s, whenever, had all the modern technology he had today, what would it look like then? Stephen M. has got this whole idea called what would Ashley do if he could have, and I think he's on, it has to be flintlock, has to be muzzleloader, but any flintlock muzzleloader of any period of time, what would Ashley do if you could build one and you were Ashley and you could build any gun, what would it be? He's talking about putting like an 1803, I believe, Harper's Ferry lock on it, interchangeable Hawken barrels. It's a real fun idea he has. He wants to know your thoughts on if you could do something like that. What would your perfect gun be?
Yeah, Stephen, first off, let me tell you, that is really hard for me because my brain is locked into historical fact, and it's really hard for me to break into something like that. But I want to pick up on something that you just said that Stephen Mann said, like using an 1803 Harper's Ferry lock. That's probably what Jake and Sam used on the Super Hawken, on Ashley's Hawken he had built back late 22, early 23. they probably either used a lock off of an 1803 Harper's Ferry or a 1795 Springfield musket. A good, heavy military lock. So, yeah, I mean, golly, like I say, it's hard for me to break out of historical fact because I already know kind of what Ashley did and what he had the Hawkins do. So, yeah, it's golly, Stephen, I'm going to have to let you use your imagination on that one, buddy.
And that kind of circles around to something we were actually just talking about last night, because we had several people come on our videos and try to tell us that on Ashley's first trip up the river, he had 100 Hawken rifles, 100 Super Hawken rifles. And Duke he's not here tonight, but he was trying to explain that on the first trip up the river, the Hawkins had only been there for a very short period of time. It would have been a little bit difficult. Well, like you said, one of them had been there, but they hadn't been that set up yet. But you're talking about one Super Hawken on the second trip up the river, right?
Right. You got to realize that Jake didn't even get to St. Louis until 1821, and Sam didn't until 1822. And they were just getting business started. They didn't have probably that much of a reputation yet. A lot of their business was forging traps and horseshoes and different things like that. It wasn't even building the guns. But on the 1822 trip, when Ashley and Henry called for those 100 guys and put together that expedition, they were basically starting a whole new breed of employee. Up until then, all the employees of the fur trade were engagees. In other words, they were paid X number of dollars per year for their services. Ashley and Henry, what they started doing, and this is from the very beginning, the 100 men were going to get as their pay half of the furs that they trapped. So that incentive in and of itself to have these guys go out and work hard. But they had to be outfitted, and part of the outfit was a gun and powder and lead. But it couldn't have been 100 Hawken rifles because there's no way for that to happen. For them to scrounge up 100 guns in the time period that they were putting this expedition together, they'd have been hitting every shop in St. Louis and the whole surrounding area.
So what is a Super Hawken exactly? I kind of have an idea, but just fill me in here. What classifies a Super Hawken?
The Super Hawken is probably a modern term. And most of what we know about it comes from an interview with Sam Hawken when he was 90 years old, but he was still very lucid and had an excellent memory. And what he said that they built for William Ashley was a rifle that shot 16 balls to the pound. In other words, it shot a 1 ounce ball, which would equate to probably a 69 caliber round.
Wow.
He requested a 3.5 foot barrel, so it had a 42-inch barrel, 69 caliber, was probably full octagon. So we're talking about a really heavy barrel. And I think Bob Woodfill, who is maybe the preeminent Hawken researcher, writer of this day, said that he estimated that the gun weighed about 11.5 pounds. Would have been full stock, octagon barrel, 69 caliber, and that it probably did use a heavy military lock.
Yeah.
So,
That's definitely a pony gun, isn't it?
Yeah, that you're going to carry that on your saddle. Or on your boat, I should say. On your boat.
Canoe gun.
the reason he wanted that was because when they went upriver in 1822, they did have some trouble with the Sioux and various tribes along the way. And he wanted a gun that he could use to shoot long range from the keel boat and, deter the Indian threat that was on the shore.
All I can think about is Davy Crockett and River Pirates. He wanted to let them know old Mike Fink was coming. Okay, so there's a couple more questions here. John Green asks, let's see. Question, what kind of guns were carried by settlers in eastern Florida in the late 18th and early 19th centuries? Would Pennsylvania-style rifles be out of place here?
No. Probably not the primary arm. You'd still be seeing tons of smoothbores, whether they were British made or down in that part of the country, you probably would run across a lot of Spanish made smoothbores and probably a lot of French fusees, because the French had a lot of influence down through Louisiana and down through there. So a lot of smoothbore trade guns. No, the rifle would not be out of place at all, because you have to remember that by the time we get up to the American Revolution, we had whole regiments of backwoods riflemen. And rifle was not that uncommon by get to the Revolution. 1750s, 1760s, it wasn't quite, but it was becoming more and more common, especially as the settlers progressed into Appalachia farther. So did the gunsmiths. So there were gunsmiths out there in western North Carolina and western Virginia that were building rifles by that time.
It's kind of what you see when you see the Kibler Southern Mountain Rifle. That's a Carolina school of a Western. Well, it's Joseph Whitson, but that's something I should ask you here, because we're dealing about Southern. I should explain this. A lot of you out there already know this, but there are different what we call today schools of rifle, right? I don't know where they came up with that term or however, but you have your different. I don't know how to explain it. I'm probably stepping all over myself here, but is there any school of rifle for like way deep South Florida, or does it kind of end in Southern Appalachians, Carolinas?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any school that far south, and when we talk about school, what we're talking about is a particular set of characteristics that came from Lancaster County or Bedford County or the James River of Virginia or, the Tidewater region of North Carolina. And as the settlers progressed, the Moravians were great gun builders. They always had a gunsmith in their community. And by the time we're getting into the 1760s, there was a large Moravian community around Salem, North Carolina, and that's just almost to the mountains, So we're starting to see the different schools pop up. Western North Carolina. Now we get into the Kibler gun, with that real deeply curved butt plate and the light trim gun that is going back to the smaller. What we're looking at there is a style of gun that was probably being built 1810, 1820 on up through 1850, and actually up to 1900 and beyond. So
yeah,
with locks. The guns were lock, and the later guns were percussion. But
yeah. I'm gonna ATC. I'm gonna take you out right here and bring you back because all right, let me give him just a second, and I'll bring him back. All right, hang on just a minute. Are you getting that bad echo? Are you getting that bad echo, really Snapper?
It's real bad. Yeah.
Okay, just a second here. Let me give him just a second. You think I can get him to go out and come back in?
Did he have any issues coming in the first time or no? Oh yeah, I would do that then.
Did he have any issues coming in?
Can you hear us, DC?
The first time or no?
No.
Oh, yeah, I would do that then.
Yeah, yeah.
We're getting a really bad echo, so I would like to have you
We're
try
getting
to
a really
back
bad
out
echo, so I would like to
and
have
then
you
click
try
the
to
link
back
again
out
and come back in.
and then
because
click the
somehow
link again and
somebody's
come back
internet got
in
way
because
behind
somehow somebody's internet got way behind here.
Okay.
here. Okay.
Could it be that he has speakers on really loud?
Well, yeah, but he didn't have that a minute ago.
It's been pretty bad, but it hadn't been that bad. But it's been pretty bad this whole time.
So I'm going to go through here while he's out.
I have a question for him when he gets back, though. If you could remind me to ask this question, I'm really curious. If you were from the East and you wanted to become a mountain man and you got onto one of these companies to go do fur trading, if you just had your standard rifle that you would use in the East, like the whole school of rifle thought, did these companies require you to have a certain caliber, certain size, all that stuff? Or was it if whatever you bring, you're allowed to use? If you're dumb enough to bring a small gun, you get what I'm saying? Or was there more military style? You need this caliber, this and that?
We're still getting that echo.
We're still getting that echo. Let me see here.
Give me 2 minutes here.
Okay. I'll give you a minute here. But I can tell you and he can answer it better, but my answer to that question would be you're not going to be shooting as many squirrels as you are buffalo out there.
Right.
So you're going to hear a lot of that in St. Louis, people turning their squirrel rifle in, selling it, going back east.
For something larger.
For something bigger. But I guarantee you he can give you a better
Did he not happen to have like a set of headphones or anything?
Well, it wasn't bad last night, so I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and take him out and then let him come back in.
Yeah.
Completely. All right. So anyway, get over here, and he'll be back, guys, in just a second. It happens to Blackie all the time. That's not him. Maybe. So. Grey Wolf said, I have a rolling block that I want to rebarrel and was thinking of a 360 buck hammer as chamber-loaded black powder with 357 caliber, 3855 instead of the 357 cal. Okay, let's see. Calibers I cast for. Well, that'd be interesting to see. 3855 is a pretty decent round for something like that. I've been shooting a lot of 43 Spanish in the rolling block here lately myself. Well, I say a lot, all the brass that I own. The Caleb owns, I should say. I think we have 16 pieces, and we take good care of them.
Loaded and ready to go again.
Yeah, they're talking about this. Diane Houston said, "Get a Kibler, medium price for great quality. If you buy cheap, you'll buy a second one and end up spending more." Yeah, Kiblers are great if you can. They're a little bit of work to put them together. Ethan and I have 2 of them.
I need to get one myself. I really like them.
When he comes back in, I know that Turkey Creek has one too. I'm going to go ahead here. Okay. Just give me just a minute, guys. I got Duke coming in too.
Oh, yay.
I think.
Oh, he's back.
Okay. Let's try this now. Nope, he's not back. We got the spinning wheel of death. I'm going to let him. There he is. How about now? Hey, we fixed it. We're good to go now. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. I'm going to turn your mic up just a little bit. Your mic's a little quiet. Oh, nope.
Nah, it's
just
back.
Started echoing again.
Turkey Creek, do you have a set of headphones?
I've got some earbuds.
Yeah.
Try that. Try that.
I'm going to take that down while we're doing here.
I think
Guys,
the
we're
echo's coming
running-
from his speakers. It's got to be.
We're running Yeah, we are running 50 people here between all of us.
Woo, nice.
Between these two channels, and so we're doing pretty good. And I appreciate y'all being here. Everything Black Powder is in. Sorry, I've been a little slow on the chat. Somebody got a $2. I believe that's you, Snapper. You got a super chat.
Did I really?
You got
No
$2
way.
super chat from Texan 1836.
I don't think it was for me. I don't see it on my end. I think it's
Oh,
for
well,
you.
maybe it's for me. Well, whoever it's for, I sure appreciate it. Gina
Yeah.
Wood, good evening, everyone. He's not in yet. Rob Grant said we were nitro cards and we're overshot card. When we're okay, I'll get that to him when he first gets back. Small caliber arms reviews. And he said I need to get a Hawken super
Me
or regular.
Me too.
Me too.
Can you hear us now? Oop,
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
You sound better.
Hello?
but I can hear
Yeah.
Okay.
you. There you go.
Is that better?
Way better.
Yeah, there's a little echo.
It's a little delay, but
Yeah, I can hear you better too.
there we go.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Can you
All
hear
right,
me?
so I'm just gonna. Yes, you actually sound really,
Hey.
really good now.
Turkey Creek, do you have any speakers still playing? Like, can you try turning those down? Because they're still hearing an echo. I don't know where they're coming from.
No, it's just in my earbuds. It's not playing over the
Okay.
speaker.
Okay. It's got to be the software somewhere. It's okay. It's not that bad anymore. So.
It's just
All
me.
right, so that's okay. It happens all the time. I think our record was Blackie Thomas went in and out like 82 times during one chat.
Yeah.
Okay, so Diane Houston had a question. She said, "What flintlock rifle do you recommend for a beginner that doesn't break the bank?"
Yeah. Actually, if you're wanting to do the Western fur trade period, and you can find one at a good price, I would say a CVA mountain rifle. Actually, pretty authentic looking,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I have a real problem with a lot of the other guns. Invest Arms is getting a little better. You know, they're turning out some pretty good kits and guns. Traditions is still on the old CVA model and not something I'm real fond of. But if you can find an old CVA mountain rifle,
I guess you're a little bit like me. You want a. What happened?
The CVA mountain rifle he's talking about, Diane, and you got to buy them used now because CVA don't make them anymore. But right here on this light on my top shelf right here behind me, see we have one right up there. And I know somebody in the chat who will second that, and that's Stephen M. Mann. He always tells me, I've been all over the whole Rocky Mountains carrying old Bertha across my saddle, my CVA mountain rifle.
Yeah, when it comes to a lot of guns, I like something that's a little bit more closer to authentic side if I'm buying a replica, just because it's a gun at first, but then you want it to fit and be part of that niche, and it'll always bother you if it isn't right. At least me, anyway.
And somebody here answered her question with Cornelia Sola answered her question and told her, get a Kibler, medium price for great quality. If you buy cheap, you'll buy a second one and end up spending more.
Bingo. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, Lyman is out of the business now, but a Lyman Great Plains rifle or an old Jonathan Browning mountain rifle, something like that. Kibler. Yeah, you can call those medium priced, I guess. They
are pricier on the kit side.
They're not cheap. So,
but they're considerably cheaper than a Pedersoli Hawken right now.
Yeah,
is that right?
Oh yeah. Pedersoli Hawken's up there at $1,600.
I really hope Kibler starts making a Hawken. Once they do, they're going to own the game.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, when they do,
he will at some point. I don't know if that's going to be next or or maybe a smoothbore like an English style colonial fowl or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be cool too.
Now, Snapper had a question for you himself. And go ahead,
Okay.
Snapper.
Okay, so my question was, say you're from the East, you wanted to get into this whole fur trading mountain man out west. If you got onto an expedition, what were the requirements of somebody like you if you had your own rifle already, but wow, that echoes bad. But sorry, the echo's kind of making me mess up my what I'm thinking. So let me ask this without saying with this in my ear. So if you already had your own gun, but it was a smaller rifle, but not too small, were there requirements on what size you had, what you had to use, was there a minimum, maximum, all of that? What would be the way you were outfitted by the company or yourself to be on the expedition?
No, I'm not aware of any fur company that had requirements like that. If you hired on and you had your own gun, you were probably considered good to go. In 1823, you know, a guy coming from Eastern Tennessee, he might be a little underarmed because he may be shooting something that's only 45 caliber. And you're not going to put a buffalo or a grizzly down with a 45 caliber, you know, but he's going to go out, and if he survives that first year, he's probably going to take some of his profits and upgrade his gun. So
Okay.
you know, it.
So more or less, you were kind of supposed to do your own thing, and you kind of knew what you were getting into when you got there, and you took care of yourself.
Yeah, if you had your own gun, companies, they came in, they were busted, you know. They didn't have anything. They had the clothes on their back. And they hired on as an engagee with American Fur, and they went into debt immediately, pulling supplies from the company, gun, you know, ammunition, your boiling pot, anything like that. So yeah, but so you were getting that stuff directly from the company, and if you were out in the mountains getting them, you were paying mountain prices. You were spending a lot of hard-earned fur on a gun.
So it'd be more preferable to buy it somewhere else while you're coming in instead of buying it there, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those guys that came in, they were country boys. They'd already been trapping. You know, they were hunters. You know, Jedediah Smith, when he went to work for Ashley in 22, he was an accomplished trapper and hunter from, I want to say, Indiana is where he came from. You know, so I'm betting that he probably already had his own gun.
All right. Well, thank you.
I'm going to read over here just a little bit because there's some more questions here. I got to read down here just a second here. Here we go. A BR549 number 2 said, what was the most prevalent trade gun walking around load used for the fur trade? Ball, shot, or buck and ball?
It would have been round ball. They would have been loading their guns with the round ball. I mean, if you were pulling guard duty on the horse herd or something all night long, you might load up with shot or buck and ball. But day in and day out, those guys were traveling through some rough country. A grizzly bear pops up in front of me, and I got to take a shot. I don't want, you know, shot or eat. Yeah, I want as heavy a load as I can hit him with. So.
Yeah, I'm the kind of guy who got stuck with the grizzly bear and birdshot.
So I'm gonna what I'm doing here, by the way, TC, just so you know, I'm killing this echo by manually shutting everybody's microphones off and on as we're talking. So if you say something and you don't hear yourself, I'll get you in just a second. Both of you guys, I promise. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna roll down here. Everything Black Powder said, howdy boys. Let's see. Gina Wood said good morning. Okay, Rob Grant has a question here. He says, when were nitro cards and overshot cards first used, and what was used before that?
I don't know when they started cards like that. I'm going to guess probably somewhere in the mid 19th century. But on the frontier, if you were a settler on the frontier, something like that, you weren't using cards. You were using tow or wasp's nest or something like that. And tow. That's another product that had to be acquired, So even your tow, if you were using tow for cleaning your gun, you were washing that out and reusing it. So they would probably use tow for wadding, but chances are they were using, especially on the frontier, people were using wasp nest or Spanish moss. If you're down in the country where the moss is hanging off the trees, that long green moss, or up in the Rockies, you guys have probably been there. You get down along the creek bottom and there's a fir spruce forest, got some moss hanging off there, that green moss. That makes great wadding. So that's what those guys were using.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that's one of the things that I really appreciate. You were the first one that introduced me and my brothers using wasp nest. And for civilian smoothbores, that's pretty well all we use now.
Yeah.
Did anybody ever use leaves, or was that not a thing because they were worried about fires? Did you guys hear me?
Just a second, Snapper. I couldn't hear you. You got muffled. What'd you say?
Okay. Did they ever use leaves, or is that a big no-no because they were worried they could catch the entire forest on fire?
Green leaves, green grass, anything like that that's not going to readily burst into flame is going to work for wadding. Yeah, green leaves,
green grass.
Yep. Yeah, green grass, anything like that. Even now, smooth bores, if I don't have, the wasp nest, after a year, it gets kind of real crumbly and dry and doesn't work very well. And if I don't have any, I just use brown paper. But they didn't have that, So, but I'll just roll up a wad of brown paper and put it down there. And if it's of course, we're in a drought period, and you got to really watch what you're doing now. But yeah, I mean, you don't want to catch the world on fire.
When I shoot my muzzle-loading shotgun, I usually use coffee filters that I nitrate so they burn really fast. So they'll actually usually burn before they even hit the ground. They'll be out. It's a pretty good. I find it works better than anything else that I've been buying off the shelf to use for a loading over top to keep everything in place. That the coffee filter just really works great if you dip it in water with a bunch of potassium.
Hey, Snapper, I want you to try to back out and come back in because your audio just has gotten terrible. Okay. I don't know what's going on. It must be a bad night for internet.
I'm sure it is, buddy. All right, I'll come out and I'll come right back, okay?
Yeah, okay. It's gotten pretty unhearable, understandable.
Okay.
Martin Kavanaugh said, hi, everyone, checking in from New Zealand. Louisiana Gray said, yes, I'm sure over the years you have your stories. Classic Guns Today is in hi, and he said he'll catch this tomorrow afternoon. Angelica Woods is in. Hardy said, maybe I missed something, but what did I nail? Okay.
Can you guys hear me better now?
Yeah, that sounds better. Let me turn back on. Let's see if we got any better sound here.
Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, there's the echo. Okay, I'll go back to manually moving everybody's microphones around. I'm sorry out there, guys. It's just one of those nights. I think it's the internet. But we still have 60 people in here, so that's pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm going to scroll through here, guys. I'm sorry if I missed any of your comments. But I am just reading through here. I'm going to look for questions. And I'm not really seeing any questions until I get to the bottom, maybe. So using flash paper isn't good for wadding. No, that's not a good idea, Hardy. Don't burn the countryside down. Okay. Did you see Texan? Yeah, so that pretty well catches us all up there. I wanted to just kind of let Turkey Creek go here because I kind of just wanted to hear a few stories about,
Yes.
what guns, because I wanted to kind of get into this building guns. Where do you get your gun parts? How deep in detailed are you into building your guns? And because you've built a lot of them, and kind of what plans would you love to build a gun you haven't built yet? Things like that. If you just kind of want to go there.
Yeah, I get them. I will to answer your question. How deep will I go? I'm capable, really, of building a gun from the stick, but I'm like I told you last night. I'm getting pretty darn old, and I don't have a lot of time anymore. So I want a piece of wood that has the barrel channel in and the ramrod hole drilled, and everything else I'll do it myself. And I've done basically from that position all the way to the opposite end to the Kibler I just finished, which is 99.5% of the inletting's already done. So yeah, and I'll get I've built that Wilson trade gun. That was a K-Wood kit. I built guns, kits from Pecatonica River, Track of the Wolf. That's probably my two main sources. I'm looking at one now. The next one I want to build, I'm looking at Knob Mountain muzzleloading supply, and they don't do. Well, they probably would give you a lot of inletting done already, but basically what I'm looking at from them is just a rough shaped stock with the barrel channel and ramrod hole in. And I want to make all the other parts myself. So that's what I'm looking at next. And as far as what I would like to build, what I have, fantasies of building, I would love to build a Baker rifle. Yeah, but to build a good Baker, I'm looking at the rifle shop, and that's $2,000 just for the parts. I get on Rifle Shop's website, and I'm just in heaven. I'm looking at Baker rifles and knock volley guns and English wall guns and things like that, and I could just go crazy. There. So yeah, there's a lot of guns that I'd like to build. Right now, I think my focus, I guess my interest is turning to the Southern guns, the whole period, whether it's the early guns from the Tidewater region of Virginia and North Carolina on up through the guns built in the mountains at the turn of the, when the 18th century turned into the 19th century and on into the 1820s and 30s. I like those guns. I do. There's not much I want to build with a percussion lock, really. I would if somebody really wanted one, but I really like flint guns. I actually way prefer a flint ignition over a percussion ignition. So that's what I would like to be building right now. I'd love to build a Baker. Everybody who's seen the Sharp series or read the books, you want a Baker rifle, So.
So just to kind of piggyback on that, I know that your last rifle, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about it. I kind of already spoke up to buy it. So I guess if somebody else buys it, they can. But I've been trying to get the money together for it. But the last rifle you built was a Harper's Ferry 1803. Yeah, right there. Guys, don't you be getting the greedy eyes. I've almost got enough money to buy that thing, and I've been working on it for a few months. But I just kind of wanted to ask you what got you into the 1803 Harper's Ferry. Obviously, there's Hawken history there too and everything, but what made you want to build that rifle?
Yeah, I mean, to hit on the point you just made, when you look at the 1803 Harper's Ferry, you have to take into consideration that Jake Hawken worked at the Harper's Ferry Arsenal from 1808 to 1818. He worked on a lot of those, and so you start looking at what we think of as a traditional Hawken, or I do. I see Harper's Ferry written all over it, you know. But what I guess got my interest up is the controversy, if you want that, of were those the guns that went, the 15 short rifles that went with Lewis and Clark on the Corps Discovery? And my answer to that, I'm satisfied that there is evidence that it was some iteration of what later in the year 1803, after Lewis picked up his guns, became the U.S. model 1803 rifle. So, I think that it was some iteration of that rifle. I'm stepping on a lot of people right now, probably going to get a lot of comments saying, no, it was a 1792 or 94 contract rifle. Well, I've got just as much proof that it was a pre-production 1803 type rifle as those guys do that it was a 1792 contract rifle. Maybe more, because he wanted a larger caliber, and most of those contract rifles were in the 45 to 50 caliber range, about 49 caliber, and they were all long guns, so they would have had to been cut back. Lewis required spare locks for every gun, so those guns were already sitting in the arsenal. They didn't have spare locks for those guns. Those guns came from a dozen different makers, you know. So yeah, that's my opinion. And I told you last night that the older I get, the less I can remember, and the more opinionated I get about what I do remember. But I think it was some iteration of a pre-production 1803 that were the 15 short rifles that went with Lewis and Clark. William Clark had his favorite rifle that he took, and he called it the small rifle. And not because it was small in size, it was made by a gunsmith friend of his whose last name was Small.
Yeah.
Everybody else in the expedition was armed with the 1795 Springfield musket.
Yeah.
Which your brother Ethan is.
Yeah, go ahead.
He's real familiar with that. Yeah, your brother Ethan is familiar with that because it's a knockoff of the Charleville.
Mm-hmm. Duke is here, by the way, guys. Duke, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that we're having internet issues tonight, so the only way I'm avoiding echo is I'm going around and I am muting people's mic and letting everybody talk one at a time. So what do you got going on, Duke?
Oh, nothing. I just got back from buddy's place, and it's been fun. I'm back in Wyoming, so yeah, it's been just crazy.
Does the fort look the same way it did when you left it?
Yeah.
Burned it down or nothing, or stole all the wood off of it?
No, nothing's burned down yet.
No Indian raids, nothing like that, huh?
No.
So we're just here talking about the 1803, and I was going to go ahead and ask Turkey Creek this. I'm going to switch mics around. But what is the story that you got? Because I feel like when you built that gun, you gave it a patina, and you could show it again if you wanted, but you gave that gun a patina, and it feels more like this should be a gun maybe 15, 20 years out from the War of 1812. Maybe is this a mountain man's gun? What's the story in your mind on this gun you've built?
Was okay. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. What I was trying to come up with in my mind, okay, the Congress authorized a regiment of riflemen in 1799, okay, which was the same period that the British were beginning to create a rifle regiment of their own. So our War Department was trying to basically stay in the arms race, so to speak. And so they authorized a regiment of riflemen in 1799. They didn't authorize funding for that regiment until 1808. And that's when the regiment of riflemen was stood up and equipped, was in 1808. So what I was looking at, I wanted a gun that had been issued in 1808 and had been carried daily by one of these riflemen. And now we're in the War of 1812, you know, and he's campaigning. The basic model for our riflemen, we had a regiment, but they would detail individual companies to be with infantry regiments, just pretty much the same way that the British did with their rifle companies. Their primary purpose was to be skirmishers, flankers, scouts, things like that. And so I wanted a rifle that had been carried daily by one of these guys that had been in the regiment for 4, 5, 6 years. So it's got a patina to it, especially the brass parts. I've tried to darken. I've tried to put a little wear on the barrel here and there. I'm not one for going and dinging up a stock, you know, to make it look used. So I didn't really do that, but I tried to make it look like it had been carried. Another thing about the rifle regiment, they had kind of an unofficial saying. It was Indian file, Indian pace. So these guys are actually out there, they're trotting, you know, through the woods. And if you've ever tried that, the only way to carry that is at a trail carry, where you've got the rifle in your right hand, just forward of the balance point, where the butt is hanging just a little bit low, and that kind of keeps the muzzle up. And I go out and I go trot through the woods doing that just to get the feel of that. And so I've tried to put a little wear on the barrel right in that area, and that's what I was aiming for with that rifle. So,
well, it is now I hear you're unmuted now.
Okay, I wasn't trying to do something that had been create something that had been knocked about in the mountains for 20 years. You know, that would be hard for me to do to a nice rifle. So,
well,
yeah.
So are you saying that mountain men rifles that may have been made in the early 1800s might not have been in that good a shape? I'm thinking Seth Kinsman's rifle. When you see it nowadays, it's got a different, I believe that rifle was actually used in 1812, and it's got wire around the stock, and you know what I'm talking about. You're unmuted.
That goes back to the Hawken thing. People say, well, we've never seen a flint Hawken. No, you haven't. They got used up, you know. Mm-hmm. There's probably pieces of them laying around out there, but they got used up. The Hawkins that we have now, the original Hawkins, those are later built guns. Those weren't used in the mountains.
There's one flintlock Hawken I've seen, and it's up at the Fur Trade Museum in Shadron, and it's got S. Hawken on top of the barrel.
I was about to say, I was about to say, Duke, you could probably take into that because you're always telling me how that a certain group of people got Sharps rifles and then used their Hawken barrels for crowbars.
Yeah, that was William Hamilton talks about that after he goes to California in 1849, 1850.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's just those guns got used up, and yeah, Duke, I've seen that gun you're talking about, and yeah, you just don't see them. I mean, you go to the Mountain Man, the Museum of the Mountain Man in Pinedale.
I didn't touch it.
What happened? He got muted.
Yeah, and I didn't do it.
Oh, lovely.
Just a second. Just a second. Did you mute your mic on your end accidentally, Turkey Creek? Because oh, there it is. There it is. I don't know what I do.
No.
It's behind. Internet's bad tonight, guys.
No,
I'm sorry.
wasn't me, man. I'm not touching anything. But yeah, I mean, you look at the Carson Hawken or the Bridger Hawken or the Medina Hawken or any of those guns are later guns. That's
yeah, 1840s at least.
Yeah, yeah. That's not the gun that Jim Bridger carried when he was trapping beaver, you know?
The only, I think, who was it? There was a couple guys that's noted to have Hawkins in the 30s. And I think Bridger had a Hawken in the 30s, but it's not the Hawken that's on display that they've got. Trying to think of who else. There's a couple of guys, because it's in that book on the Hawken rifle.
TC, I want to have you come out and come back in one more time because something's wrong and I can't even control the microphone on this end anymore. Go out and come back in one more time and we'll see how that works.
This has been one of the more difficult ones we've had.
Yeah, but we've had a lot of people and it's been a really good conversation.
Yeah, it's been fun. It has been.
So I'm going to go through here and read a few of these questions. Everybody was excited to see Duke. Skunkworks Rifles had and maybe Duke, you can talk to this while we're waiting for him to come back. Skunkworks Rifles had a question. Did anyone ever retool barrels, recut rifle barrels? Well, they definitely did when Bannerman came around.
Yeah. Yeah, if I remember right, back in days, like, yeah, if barrel, a lot of times his touch hole is going to wear out. If they didn't put a liner in that, they'd cut it down and then redo it. I've never seen them rebore a barrel, but I wouldn't be surprised. Bore it out and you can make a smooth bore Fowler piece.
I've heard of that.
I've got
I've
one
heard of that.
actually right there.
Yeah,
Bored out Civil War rifles, so they bored it out to 69.
right.
He's
So
almost back, and then I'll let him back in. There he is. All right, you're back. Can you hear us?
All right, can you hear me?
The echo's
Yes.
gone.
I don't hear the
Yeah.
echo. Does anybody hear the echo?
I don't hear
Don't
it.
say anything. Don't want to jinx it.
Not touching anything. All right, so we had a question here, Turkey Creek. He wanted a Skunkworks Rifle wanted to know: did anyone ever retool barrels or recut rifle barrels?
Yeah, that was done. They'd get shot out a lot easier. I mean, back in those days, most gun barrels were made out of soft iron, especially the ones that were made, before, I don't know, just off the top of my head, say before 1810. They were using soft iron, and those rifles would get shot out. So yeah, they'd take it to a gunsmith, and he would freshen the barrel. That's what it was called.
Freshen the barrel. Okay. We have a question here for you. Old West History said, would a Kibler Colonial cover the time frame of the French and Indian War up to the early Mountain Man?
Yep, it would. Yeah, you could. The Kibler Colonial Rifle, you would start seeing those maybe right after the French and Indian War. Maybe as early as the French and Indian War, but that style is probably something you would see more during the Revolution. But those guns were still going, in 25 when men were going to the mountains to trap beaver. Yeah, there was. Matter of fact, J.J. Henry was he did two patterns basically. He did the English scroll guard pattern trade rifle and a Lancaster trade rifle. So basically, you're looking at the same basic gun as the Kibler Colonial.
That brings me. Go ahead, Caleb. He's got a question. Go talk, Caleb, for the first time. Microphone's all yours.
Oh my God!
What do you think those were actually chambered in mostly? The Colonial rifles.
In the colonial days, they were still larger bore. You would see the bore start dropping in guns, especially ones made for back east, during what's called the Federal period. After the Revolution, 1790, that period, the large game was pretty much gone. So the caliber started dropping, and then it started coming back up in the Southern guns. They were using larger bores, and then as the large game disappeared, those guns started dropping in caliber too.
Here's a question. We got our echo back. In just a minute, we'll work through it. I'm going to go ahead and mute you while I talk here, if I can. Now my mute button's.
But the echo quit again.
Okay. So iPod Walker said, "Hey fellas, did anyone ever chrome line or nickel barrels in the 17 to 1800s?"
No.
Mm-mm.
Chrome didn't exist yet.
Yeah.
Nickel didn't exist till the 1870s, 1880s ish. But no, that wasn't possible.
Yeah.
I don't think chrome started till like the 1930s or 40s.
Yep. No, they were just iron.
So I think we're pretty well through there. Wagons had a question here. He said, "Wasn't Southerners restricted from owning rifles during Reconstruction, so they bored out rifled muskets so they could own them?" I've never heard that, but that would explain the massive amounts of Southern, like I have one right up there, Southern, what should be rifles that are really rough, smooth bores now. I haven't heard that that's the case, but that would make sense. Okay, so Duke was going to probably talk about this, but I'll beat him to it. Have you ever thought about a Dickert rifle? How prominent the Dickert rifle is? And I could, he's laughing because I could think he's going to ask that very question. What do you think about the Dickert rifle? Is it more common than a Hawken, or what's? And I'm going to talk for just a second while your mic comes unmuted because it's still muted here. And then we're going to get ready to shut this down, guys, because the internet's just kind of killing us tonight. But I do want to get this one question in as soon as this microphone unmutes. It's kind of got a mind of its own right now. All right. So I'm going to have you go out, TC, and come in one last time because we got about 10 minutes before it goes bad. Or as
he just unmuted as he backed out.
As Blackie would say, "Hold on, I'll be right back." So, yeah, I know. Is that your favorite mountain man era rifle, Duke? The Dickert? Is that kind of your thing?
Actually, Derringer.
Oh, Derringer rifle?
Yep, Derringer rifle. Those are long, slender, beautiful. They're kind of if you took a J.J. Henry and a Dickert and mix the two, that's kind of what a Derringer's like. But they're a real long rifle.
I'm going to check that out. That sounds pretty interesting.
There's not a lot of examples out there, so they're more of a rare one. But the only mountain man I can think of off the top of my head that had one was Kit Carson.
Well, they had him at the Alamo. At least one.
But, that's the thing, because, a lot of the mountain man that doesn't get into too much of who carried what. You don't hear him mention the specific gun more as maybe the type of pattern the gun was.
Mm-hmm.
God, I just remember one guy talking when he was dealing with Hudson Bay's companies and mentioned that about him having the British muskets.
Yeah. All right, he's back. So we were on the Dickert rifle. What do you think?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Jacob Dickert was a great gun builder. How prolific he was, it couldn't have been. I mean, we're talking Hawkins, we're talking 1822 to what? I mean, Gemmer built guns up through the 1860s, right? So
Yeah.
it just, there couldn't have been anywhere near as many Dickert rifles as there were there. That's a long run for a brand of rifle. We're talking 50, 60 years maybe. So yeah,
Yeah,
no.
I mentioned while you was gone that Kit Carson's the only one I know of that carried a Dickert.
You probably saw more Derringers and Henrys and
Yep.
and things like that in the mountains than you would see, a Dickert or I'm not even going to try to name off Pennsylvania gun makers right now, but yeah, no, no. If you look at the trade lists, you'll see, like I said earlier, you'll see maybe a dozen J.J. Henry rifles on there that were listed for like $11. And then on that same trade list, you'll see maybe half a dozen Hawkins that were $18. So what's a trapper going to buy? He's going to buy that J.J. Henry,
And then 50.
That's what you. Yeah, yeah. which probably cost him $6.
Yeah. Okay, so that mic just muted itself. I was kind of getting scared of this microphone button. It just randomly does things on its own. I'm going to click it unmute one more time.
Oh, Wayne
one more time. Go. Let's see. Oregon Outback said a Derringer rifle. Isn't that kind of like jumbo shrimp? Well, his microphone's coming back, Duke. You want to talk about Derringer rifle?
Yeah, so we've got had one example when I was down there at Bent's Fort, and that's the one I've seen, and I haven't not seen an original in hand, but that one I handled. The guy made it off of measurements he took off an original, and oh, that was a sweet gun. That was a very sweet gun. Swamp barrel. The stock profile was just right. Yeah, they were that. If I was in the mountains, that's what I'd want to have. That or I might go for a Henry, but the Henrys I've seen, they're all kind of forward heavy because of heavy barrels on them. But yeah, I like those swamp barrels, those balanced rifles. They are sweet to shoot.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if the microphone's coming back, guys. It seems to have died. But I think we're going to go ahead and close this on out, and I really appreciate it. There he is.
Yeah.
Okay,
one
more question. One more question.
Okay,
somebody wrote.
Wait a minute, Garrett. I want to add something on the Dickert or on the Derringer. Derringer actually made trade rifles as well.
Yep.
So, I mean, in the same time period as the Henrys, there were Derringer trade rifles going west. So,
one more question we had here. How common was the James Bowman rifle?
Never heard of that one.
Okay, so guys, I appreciate you all coming out. I definitely appreciate Turkey Creek 1823 and coming on here tonight. Go check out his channel. I believe it's linked right in the description of this video. And if you guys are watching this later, of course, go check out his channel. Great content. Like I said, literally, I think everything he shoots on his channel, he built. And I just want to thank him for coming on. We're going to have him again another night when the internet's not so messed up, probably from the recent storms. But I do appreciate y'all guys coming on here, Duke and Snapper.
Yep.
So I'm going to go ahead and shut this off before we all completely go crazy here. As always, trust in God. Keep your powder dry. Bye.